Imagine marrying a millionaire, thinking you'll live a life of luxury, only to find yourself locked in a basement, hidden from the world. This is the shocking reality one woman faced after tying the knot with a wealthy Arab businessman. She thought she had found her fairy tale romance, but instead, she was trapped in a nightmare. How did she escape? And what happened to the millionaire who kept her prisoner? In this video, we'll uncover the chilling details of this unbelievable story, revealing secrets that few people know. Stay with us till the end to learn about the unexpected twist that changed everything. Welcome to Crux Time, where we bring you the most intriguing real-life stories from around the world. If you love gripping tales that keep you on the edge of your seat, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Now, let's dive in. Before we talk about what happened in that basement, let's take a step back and look at the man behind it all. The millionaire at the center of this story wasn't just rich. He was powerful. Born into wealth, he inherited a vast business empire with connections that ran deep in high society. Luxury cars, sprawling mansions, and private jets were just a part of his everyday life. To the outside world, he was a respected businessman, known for his charm and influence. But behind closed doors, his life was far from perfect. Then came the woman who would change everything. She wasn't from his world of wealth and excess. She grew up in a modest home, working hard for every opportunity that came her way. Beautiful, intelligent, and full of dreams, she never imagined that one day she'd catch the eye of a billionaire. Their paths crossed in the most unexpected way. A chance encounter at an upscale event led to a whirlwind romance. He showered her with gifts, whispered promises of a perfect life, and made her feel like she was living in a fairy tale. But as we all know, not every fairy tale has a happy ending. Before we talk about the dark turn this marriage took, let's look at how it all began. At first, everything seemed perfect. Their wedding was a grand affair, an extravagant celebration filled with the elite, sparkling chandeliers, and a fortune spent on every little detail. He made sure she felt like a queen, dressing her in the finest designer gowns and showering her with rare jewels. From the outside, it looked like a love story straight out of a movie. But behind the luxury, cracks began to form. The differences between them became more and more obvious. She came from a background where love was built on trust and companionship, while he believed in control and tradition. She was used to independence, but in his world, women were expected to be quiet, obedient, and unseen. Little by little, the fairy tale began to fade. The warmth in his voice turned cold. The thoughtful gestures became demands. And soon, the life she had dreamed of started to feel more like a cage. Before we talk about how she finally reached out for help, let's understand how she ended up in that basement in the first place. The shift was gradual. At first, it was just little things. She wasn't allowed to go out alone. Her phone was taken away for her safety, and guests were no longer welcome without his approval. Then, the doors started locking behind her. What seemed like protective gestures soon became absolute control. One night, after a heated argument, everything changed. She was dragged to the basement, a cold, windowless room with nothing but a thin mattress on the floor. The door locked behind her, and the realization hit. This wasn't just a punishment. She was being erased. Days turned into weeks. Food was delivered at odd hours, just enough to keep her alive. The lights flickered unpredictably, leaving her in darkness for hours at a time. She had no idea if it was day or night. With no way to communicate with the outside world, the silence was suffocating. But even in that hopelessness, she knew one thing. She had to find a way out. Before we talk about what happened after the call, let's see how she managed to make it in the first place. She had spent weeks trapped, her hope fading with every passing day. But then, an opportunity appeared, one she never thought she'd get. The house staff, though loyal to her husband, still had their routines. One evening, as a maid brought in her food, she noticed something, a phone, carelessly left on a nearby table. Her heart pounded. She knew she had only seconds. As soon as the maid stepped away, She lunged for the phone, her hands shaking as she dialed the only number she could remember, her sister's. When the call connected, she didn't have time for explanations. In a hushed, desperate whisper, she managed just a few words. "It's me. I don't have time. I'm locked in the basement. Please help." Before she could say more, footsteps approached. She barely had time to slide the phone back before the door creaked open. She turned away, acting as if nothing had happened. But deep inside, she knew. Her message had been heard. Now it was only a matter of time. Before we talk about what happened to the millionaire, let's see how she was finally freed. The moment her sister got the call, she knew something was terribly wrong. She tried calling back, but there was no answer. Panic set in, but she refused to waste time. Without hesitation, she contacted the authorities, explaining everything she knew. The police were skeptical at first. After all, the man in question was rich, powerful, and well-connected. But the urgency in her voice convinced them to act. Hours later, in the dead of night, officers arrived at the grand estate. The gates were locked, but they had a plan. Under the cover of darkness, they moved quickly, quietly, knowing any delay could mean disaster. When they finally forced their way inside, the house was eerily silent. The staff claimed to know nothing, but a faint sound, a muffled cry from below, led them straight to the basement door. It took just one blow to break the lock, and there she was, weak, exhausted, but alive. As she stepped out, the fresh air hit her like a shock. For the first time in weeks, she was free. But the nightmare wasn't over yet. The man who had done this was still inside the house, and he had no intention of surrendering. Before we talk about how she rebuilt her life, let's look at what happened to the man who locked her away. The police didn't leave without him. As soon as they freed his wife, they stormed through the mansion, searching every room. He was nowhere to be found until they checked his private office. Sitting calmly behind his massive desk, he didn't resist. He simply smirked and said, "Do you know who I am?" But this time, his wealth and connections couldn't protect him. The evidence was overwhelming. The police arrested him on the spot, charging him with unlawful imprisonment and abuse. His legal team fought hard, trying to paint it as a private family matter, but the truth was out. The world now knew what he had done. Meanwhile, his wife was finally safe, but the scars, both physical and emotional, would take time to heal. She spent weeks in a secure location, recovering from the trauma. With the help of lawyers and advocates, she built a case against him, ensuring he wouldn't walk free. And when the trial finally came, the courtroom was packed. The once powerful millionaire now sat in silence, facing the consequences of his own cruelty. This story isn't just about one woman's nightmare. It's a chilling reminder of how power and control can be used to trap people in unimaginable situations. But it also proves that even in the darkest moments, a single act of courage can change everything. What do you think about this shocking case? Have you heard of similar stories? Let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear your thoughts. If you found this video interesting, don't forget to like and subscribe to Crux Time for more real-life stories that will leave you speechless. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.